Universal Lust, Part 2. By the time we left Halloween Horror Nights and started the long drive home, it was already well after 2 a.m. Nikki listened to music and I made an effort to stay awake. When we got home, I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open. I dragged myself inside the house, kicked off my shoes and crawled into bed without bothering to get undressed. I fell asleep almost instantly, but I wouldn't stay asleep for long. I awoke to utter chaos. Nikki was frantically shaking me, asking for the password to my computer. I took a moment to process what was happening. The doorbell was ringing over and over, and Nikki was in her pajamas, holding my laptop open to the login screen. She told me to hurry because someone was trying to get into the house. I told her my password, and then she quickly logged onto her Facebook page and started writing a post. As she typed, the doorbell continued to ring in rapid order. Nikki wrote that she lost her phone, but someone was trying to break into the house, and asked anyone reading her post to call the police and send them to our address. As she did, a voice I recognized demanded that we open up. It was undoubtedly Drew, the man we met at Halloween Horror Nights. Nikki told me that we were going to hide until the police came. She looked around for a moment before telling me to make my bed so she could show me her best hide-and-seek trick. Nikki rushed to her room. A few seconds later, she came back carrying her oversized quilt. She pulled my bed about a foot away from the edge of the wall and then rearranged my blanket so it hung all the way to the floor on that side. And that's when we heard what sounded like the side gate being kicked open. After a couple of kicks, we heard it break free and slam against the side of the house. The realization that somebody kicked their way into our backyard made my blood run cold. Nikki told me to get on the floor next to the edge of the blanket. She then put her king-size quilt on top of my bed. It was big enough that it easily draped over both sides and covered me, creating sort of a blanket cocoon. I heard her turn off my overhead light using the pull cord, and a couple of seconds later, she joined me in the darkness between the two layers of blankets. She smushed so close against me that I could feel my heart pounding into her back. We waited in silence for a moment, and then we heard the unmistakable sound of someone trying to open the sliding glass door downstairs. It stopped for a few seconds, and then was replaced by the terrifying sound of shattering glass. We listened in fear as someone entered the house and started walking around. Nikki lifted up the edge of the blanket just enough for us to see beneath the small gap where her quilt didn't quite reach the ground on the other side of the bed. We could see Drew's phone light getting closer as he searched for us. He went into the bathroom and turned on the light, and then we heard him pull open the shower curtain. A few seconds later, he reappeared in the hallway. He hesitated for a second and then approached my room. He stopped at the light switch and tried turning on the light, but because Nikki had turned it off using the pull cord, nothing happened. He used his phone light to look in the closet, then under the desk, and then came to the bed. When it was obvious that he was going to look beneath it, Nikki dropped the blanket. We could no longer see what was directly happening, but we could see the glow from his phone light against the inner blanket as he searched for us. I held my breath. My heart was thumping so loudly that I was sure that he would hear it, but he didn't. A few seconds later, we heard him stand back up and walk away. Nikki lifted the edge of the blanket again, and we watched him walk out and head into Nikki's room. We listened to him rummage around her room, throw open the closet doors, push clothing aside, and then a few seconds later he reappeared in the doorway. As he entered, he told us, "Someone's missing a blanket, and I have a feeling I know exactly where it is." Again, Nikki dropped the blanket before he could see us peeking beneath. He came over to the bed and pulled out the storage bins I used for my toys. He shuffled around for a few more seconds, then he spoke, and when he did, he was right next to us under the bed. "You know I found you, right?" There was a long moment of silence, and then he grabbed Nikki. She screamed and kicked as she pulled away, and her struggles slammed me against the wall. I lifted up the blanket and saw her fully for one more moment. And then she was violently jerked out from underneath the bed. I was paralyzed with fear as I lay there watching the two of them struggle. Drew pinned her to the ground, but he couldn't quite manage to get both her arms at the same time. In my heart, I hoped that she'd somehow fight him off and then rush back over to me. But that's not what happened. He subdued her, zip-tied her, and then dragged her away. He told her they were going for a ride, and if she played nice and stayed quiet, he wouldn't have to hurt me. When I heard the front door close, I went downstairs to the window that overlooked the driveway and lifted up the blinds. I saw Drew putting her into his car. Once he secured her inside, he closed the passenger door and got into the driver's side. He put the car in gear and roared off into the night. And that was the last time I ever saw my Aunt Nikki. Her plan to have someone on Facebook call the police did in fact work, just not in time to save her. The post was seen, the police were called, and both our parents were added to the loop. A family friend came over that night and took me in while my parents drove straight home from Tennessee. Those next few years were a heartbreaking stretch for everyone involved. I blame myself for what happened, and I still do to this very day. No amount of therapy has erased that guilt. It's been almost 8 years since Nikki was abducted. If that never happened, she'd likely be married, have a college degree, a career, maybe even kids of her own by now. And to date, she's never been found. The greater Orlando area has the third most human trafficking events in the United States. Looming in the shadows of the theme parks is a dark underbelly of unimaginable terror. I pray that everyone reading this is safe, and that you and your loved ones stay that way for the foreseeable future.